I want to talk this week about drones. And specifically, you've probably seen the legislation and things going around about getting rid of Chinese drones and how bad they are and all that stuff. And if the U.S. government was really serious about it, there have been breeder facilities, and those are facilities where they put money in to help companies grow. And I haven't seen them do any of that with the U.S. drone manufacturers, although I have seen the U.S. drone manufacturers give an awful lot of money to the legislation to try to get rid of their competition. So that being the case, obviously there's no real thought or intent behind what's going on with the government right now, except to make money. That said, it's getting on to be winter here in the Northeast, and as we're getting close to that, I want to get everybody prepared. Now, it's maybe wherever you are a good time to get out and do some drone photography of the fall colors. In certain areas, they went very quickly. For example, up around the Ticonderoga region, a lot of the trees lost their leaves before fall foliage even started because of the droughts they've been having there. Here in southern Vermont, we've had color. They're very muted colors this year. There's no real bright, what I'm going to call rave colors. They're more like the comfort food colors. They're browns and golden colors and things of that nature, and not quite so vibrant this year. And our season here is just about passing, with the winds coming through, and the rain hasn't helped keep the leaves on the trees. That said, as we go past this season and we get toward winter, it's good to remember a few important facts. First of all, your batteries are going to lose life faster as they get cooler. All right. So if you're out flying and you're going to go through multiple batteries, it's probably a good idea to find some place that you can keep the batteries on you. Like, for example, if you have a jacket over a hoodie, all right, hoodies have pockets. Take your batteries, put them in your pockets, zip up that jacket, keep it zipped up, because that will allow the body heat to keep those batteries warm and extend their life a little bit longer. Of course, once they get into the drone and cool off, all bets are off, but it'll help them not lose their life as quickly out in the cold as they would otherwise. The other thing to keep in mind is if you get into snow, all right, it's beautiful to film in snow, but remember, you're going to have to land your bird. And when you land that bird, you're going to want to make sure that not only is the area directly underneath where it's going to land clear, but the area around it is clear. And that's because when these things come down, they're going to be blowing air everywhere. And if it's a light snow, it's going to be blowing snow everywhere. It's going to get in the way of the drone seeing where it is, as well as you seeing where the drone is. Not to mention, it could throw some of that snow and ice up into your face as well. So keep that in mind when you're out flying. It's not always a good idea to fly in bad weather. Some drones are rated to handle it, and those are fine. But bear in mind that you want to pay attention to the winds. If you've got a windy day, always make sure you're flying with the wind in your face or in the face of the drone on the way out. So on the way back, you'll have the wind to your back, and it'll help push the drone home for you. It'll let you go a little bit, it'll give you a better indication of how far the drone can go, because by flying out, if you were to fly out and get the battery down to 50%, which I would not recommend, but you get down, let's say the battery is down to 80%. So you've burned 20% of the battery. On the way back, with that wind behind you, you should burn less, right? So let's say on the way back, you burn 15%. Now you're down to 65%. That's a good ratio. And it'll let you know how far out you can actually fly. Keep an eye on that battery as you're flying out. You'll know when that turn back point should be, when you should turn around and come back home. and pop in a new battery. The other thing to keep in mind in that kind of weather is it may be difficult to see your drone. Now, I have an Autel. It's bright orange. It's not one of the gray ones. It's not a DJI, which I don't think I've ever seen another one that isn't gray, other than the white one that they had, and I would not want to fly a white one in a snowstorm. But unless you've got some way of identifying it easily, I'm going to recommend, and this is something that the FAA is starting to recommend now too, is always have your light on. Now, you know you need the light if you're going to fly at night, right? If you had any certifications on flying at night, you know you have to have that light on the top, flashing out to let all the planes know where you are. If you've got that on in the snow, or with the snow coming down, it will light up the snow around it. It'll help you keep track of where your drone is. So if everything comes up, the wind comes up and you can't see your drone, that light will help you spot where it is. Again, don't fly it in wind in a snowstorm unless you absolutely have to, because while you might get some great footage, you also might lose the drone. Or the drone might get blown into something and cause damage that you are now going to be responsible for. But if you have a nice, what I like to call it is like a snow globe type of effect. You have to be careful in it. It's where the snow kind of comes down and just kind of swirls a little bit. Might swirl up and swirl down or swirl around you or something. That is not going to give you as much wind against your drone, and it's probably a safer spot to fly. If you want to be absolutely safe, don't fly in the snow. But again, the biggest dangers you're going to have as we go into winter, assuming you're not trying to fly in a storm, is your battery life. And now remember, you've got the batteries of your drone that you have to worry about, but you also have the batteries of the controller. If your controller is a handheld, which the one is for that I've got for the Autel, and it isn't a cell phone, you're going to lose battery life on that device as well in the cold as your drone is going to. It might be a little less, and the reason I say that is because if you've ever held onto your cell phone and kept the screen going, you're going to notice that it warms up, right? Not quite sure why, because it shouldn't be anything other than LEDs in there, so they shouldn't be putting out that kind of warmth, but I always notice that my phone, at least the iPhone, used to warm up if the screen had been on for a while. So if your screen is on and it's got a solid backlight to it, that's probably going to keep the battery a little bit warmer in there and fight off the cold just a bit. I don't think there's a warm Snuggie you can put around the controller that would keep it relatively warmer and still allow you to function. If anybody knows of one, let me know. But your biggest threat as we go into the colder parts of the year are going to be battery life. Remember that your batteries are not going to last as long as they used to, which means you're not going to be able to fly as far. And always make sure that you got the wind to your back as you're coming back in the best way you can. I know certain mapping software, you don't have much control there, right? It's going to fly out and then back and then out and then back. So you're going to be flying into the wind and away from the wind and into the wind and away from the wind. But if you can plan out, you can design your grid. So if you can design your grid so that it's starting out into the wind, right? So turn that grid around so it's starting into the wind, and then let it go back. Then you can monitor it and see when you have to bring it home. Pause the mission, bring it home, change the battery, and put it back up again. Bearing in mind that to get an idea of what the usage is going to be, if you fly up and down a couple times, you're going to fly into the wind and out and in and out. So that'll give you a little bit of a basis to figure out what your battery life is going to be, how much of the grid you're going to be able to do before you have to change the battery. Now, it will let you know when your battery is low, of course, but at the same time, you want to be aware of how long your battery is going to last. So you can bring it down earlier if necessary, especially if it's about to go on a leg into the wind. Right? If you're in the middle of the grid, it's coming into the wind towards you, bring it down. That way it won't be thrown off by thinking it's got more battery life available because it's flying into the wind and it's going to be burning more battery. It's not going to go quite as far as it might think it's going to go. But other than that, I have always enjoyed flying in winter. When I first got my license, that was one of my favorite things to do, other than getting golden hour at fall foliage time, is to bring her up in the winter, fly her around. Everything looks so much different when it's covered in snow. And it gives you a very different look of the world when you can fly that way. You get some awesome panoramas of it. And if you don't have, if all your trees aren't bare, I have a lot of pine trees, you get to see the snow on the trees and those kinds of things. So it lets you see things a little bit differently. Another thing to bear in mind is if you have any ham radio operators around the area, they might need you to take a look and see if their antennas are being held in place and how they're doing. My antennas broke a year ago because the snow just stuck to them. Antennas are thin wire, and it took quite a bit of stickiness for the snow to stick on those things and weigh them down enough that they could break. And they did. They pulled loose from the main unit, so I've got my new antenna up this year in a V shape, so that the snow will probably slide off more easily than it would the other horizontal positioning that I had. But keep that in mind when you're out flying, that the batteries are going to cause, they're going to be less. The wind especially is going to create a wind chill that's going to cause those batteries to degrade even quicker. And if you've got some place you can stick them on your body and put them under your jacket, that's a great idea. Keep them in there, keep them warm. And that way it'll protect the battery life a little bit longer. Just don't take the battery out of your drone and stick it in your pocket because it's going to be a little chilly. But that's what I got for you guys this week. I will talk to you all next week.